Hi, my name is Lionel. I'm the founder of Big Besty's Inspirational Gardens, and welcome to our podcast together with Aaron Lewis. I hope you enjoy the first episode, which is going to be centered on my upbringing, so you can understand a little bit more about where I was brought up and some of the experiences that hopefully will give you a better appreciation to why Big was and has been shaped the way it is.
Hello and welcome to a joint podcast with Aaron Lewis and the one and only Lionel Best. How you doing, buddy?
Not too bad at all, Aaron, not too bad.
I hope you're not too angry about the setup time it took to get everything ready today, but we're rolling now.
We're rolling, and you know, I'd rather work with perfectionists than people that's just going to rush the job. So, but that's not a problem. That's not a problem.
Right. Yeah. So this podcast has been in the making for a little while. We met at my brother's barbecue.
Absolutely. Good old Clive. Hello, Clive. How you doing, buddy?
And we were sitting together and we said, yeah, do you know what I mean? Why not, fuse up? And obviously, I was telling you, like, I haven't really been too active in the stuff that I've been doing with my filming, and you were saying you want to tell a story, so
here we are.
Yeah. So Lionel, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you wanted to talk about today? I know the whole premise of it was who is Lionel Best, and you wanted to basically just talk a little bit about your career and what you've done after, what you've done in football and after football.
Yeah, obviously, I'm 56 years of age. I know I don't look a day over 30, but 56 years of age, and when I think about the journey of my life, which started at a certain point, which I think today we will start touching on who is Lionel Best and my whole upbringing, which was in Bermondsey in the 70s and the 80s, in a tough time where there was a lot of racism at the time, which kind of brought people together, even in a racist area. So it'd be nice to talk about how my whole journey with football started on my estate, the team I played for, and that was the introduction for me playing structured football. Talk about what school I went to, my secondary school, and being brought up in where when I look back on it now, I feel quite blessed in an environment or different environments which gave me a lot of diversity and appreciate the value of diversity. Okay,
so what would you like people to ascertain knowledge-wise from listening to this podcast?
That everybody should be treated equally. Nobody's better than anybody else. Everyone's got an X factor. And if we focus on our X factors, you'll be surprised what you can achieve. And manners and respect and love don't cost anything, but it's worth so much.
Beautiful sentiments. I really like that. So one thing before we go into the actual podcast, if we could just spend a minute talking about Big and what you started with Big and where that originated from.
It's probably best to answer that question by how was Big first born and where did it come about. I've always used football as my tool to unofficially mentor young people, because those that know me know and know me well know that there's two things I'm passionate about. One is football, and the other thing is helping young people achieve.
I'm the founding director. Big is a community interest company now, CIC. But I started Big and developed the model back in 2011 under a sole trader business structure. It's two things that I'm passionate about. People that know me well know there's two things that I'm passionate about, have always been passionate about. One was football, one is football, and one is helping young people achieve. I'm a father of two boys, different generations, and I'm quite deep about things in society. So even though I always, to give back, certainly the same sort of support that I got when I was growing up that helped me achieve some of the things that I achieved. If it wasn't for the support that I got, I wouldn't have done it. And just through my general sort of principles, I kind of always mentored and guided young people through football without even realising it, because it was just an automatic. I would just help them take them out and do football sessions with them on a Saturday, but it wasn't just about the football, it was about other things that I just wanted to get into their mindsets.
That was kind of the cornerstone of what you started the ambition with it.
Yeah, well, I didn't think that I was going to start anything, to be fair. I just did what people did for me. But then I was a civil servant for 23 years, which you'll hear a little bit about in later episodes. But I just had a burning desire that I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more for young people. So I decided to take the plunge eventually in 2010. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to get involved in supporting young people more. But then I just knew that I had my own sort of gifts in how I can get through to young people and how young people felt safe with how I would motivate them and help them believe in themselves. So I decided to set up Big to help achieve those goals. And that's how Big started back in 2011.
Okay, cool. Later on in the podcast series, we'll get into more about Big and what it does on an everyday basis. But yeah, we'll move on to, the whole kind of reason we're here for this podcast number one is who is Lionel Best? And do you want to take the floor with essentially just your upbringing and and getting into football?
Excellent. Yeah, no, without a doubt. I'd like to start with, I'm a ordinary guy, ordinary young black man who was brought up in Bermondsey in the 1970s and 80s, which was very challenging because there was a lot of racism at those times. I'm a Southwark boy, and regardless to what and how I felt about Bermondsey at some point, I am a Bermondsey boy. I was born in North London, but at the age of 6 months, moved on to my estate, the Osprey Estate. People from Bermondsey will know.
We'll probably have a little tour around there with Lionel.
Absolutely. It'd be nice to have a little wander because it's changed so much. It's all built up now and everybody knows it as Surrey Quays.
All gentrified.
Absolutely. But I still refer to it as Surrey Docks. It was like a wasteland. And just before talking a little bit about that, I am one of 3 siblings. We're all close, not only in age, in how we are. Well, there's only a year between us all. My brother, who's 2 years older than me, I share the same birthday as him.
Oh, wow.
And my sister's in the same month, who's in between us. So we're all very, very close in age. And we used to do a lot of things together, like have birthday parties and things. Most people that remember the days that we had our little parties, they would always talk about the parties that the Bests always had. And we'd always have it, the best parties, and we'd always have it together because we had similar birthday dates. And growing up on Osprey Estate, I must admit, it was beautiful. It was like a family on that estate. As I said, the area itself, it was predominantly white. But there was a few black families on the estate and in some of the surrounding estates, like Seawood Estate.
So tell me something, I'm not trying to be naive, but in the 70s, obviously, because I know the Windrush generation was the 50s, 60s onwards, was it still a very strange thing to have black families moving in to these neighbourhoods at that time?
Yeah, I think it was. I think the stories you get told by your parents. My dad was a bus conductor. He came over early, like a lot of West Indians that were asked to help with rebuild the economy and other things. So my dad came over as a bus conductor and my mum was a nurse. So the things my mum will tell me about her days, early days as a nurse, and how she was treated.
Yeah.
And that was just sort of the back end or just the ending of the Teddy Boys and things like that. So
late 60s going into 70s.
Absolutely.
A completely new.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can imagine that, like the black people of that generation had it tough anyway. But depending on where you would live, you may get it tougher.
Yeah, sure,
and clearly we lived in Bermondsey, so you know there was a lot of things that was really challenging. What it did teach us is how to fight. And I'm not just talking about fight as in
like
fist fight.
Or whatever, like,
It's just fight for things and defend yourself and speak up for yourself and all sorts of things, which is embedded in who I am, embedded in a lot of the services or some of the things that we try to get out in our services in terms of, you know, helping our youngsters to be resilient, because you have to be resilient in life because everything is tough, nothing's easy. You have to keep building yourselves up. But the days were beautiful. Like, we played football, we had an adventure playground within the estate called Cops, and especially on summer holidays and things.
Yeah, amazing times.
We would be in there morning to night, you know, indoors you're playing pool, you're playing table tennis, and outside you're playing football, tennis and all sorts of things, and it was great. Even on our estate itself, we had a little cage where you had about 20 aside in what would be known as almost like a 5-a-side pitch now. And the pitches were, the little cage was gravel. It was terrible, but that's where you learn how to play football properly.
I'm telling you, as a 90s kid, it wasn't too dissimilar to what you're describing. Do you know what I mean? 6 weeks holidays were always the bomb, do you know what I mean? Everyone's out, water fights, this, that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, yeah.
But the good thing about those days as well was, like, everybody was your family. So your parents could leave us on the estate.
Yeah.
And everybody would parent everybody's kids.
Manage
you know,
and stuff like that as well. Yeah.
Manage yourself, but you know, if you was doing wrong, you know, you would be just as worried as your own parents seeing it than somebody else, like a close friend of your mum's or your dad's. You know, they'd always get to know what you've done. You know, and even the average parent on the estate could say something to you, and you'd have to take heed of that. Not like these days where you can't say a boo to anybody, you know, not even your own nephew and nieces anymore. But it was beautiful. But you know, as much as it was beautiful, it was very challenging. I think looking back was really quite special was, even though it was hard to manoeuvre around, it was almost like living in different worlds, because when I left my primary school, which was Rodrive, which was in the area, my mum was determined that she didn't want me to go to any of the local schools, and she wanted us to go to a Catholic school. So we went to St Thomas Apostle, which was in Peckham. So even though it wasn't a million miles away and still in Southwark, everything was under Southwark, it was in a different area, and it was a different world. And
so was it sort of more, obviously more religious, but more kind of structured in terms of? Yeah,
I would say that most of us, you know, everybody knows that, you know, every school has its issues, and every school has its different characters, and Catholic schools, I'm sure they will even today still agree and admit that nobody's immune to that. We had the bad boys in our school. But one thing that we would always say, because I'm still in touch with a lot of my friends from back in school days, is we learnt our morals from going to a Catholic school without a doubt, you know, and I think that is real, because it probably was more structured and the expectations was much more than some of the other state schools, and we were seen as strict. And even though we had a couple of madmen in the school, we didn't really fight any other schools. I can't recall our school fighting another school. I can remember a girls' school coming to fight us, but I can't remember we going to fight in other schools. But my memory ain't the best at that because my friends will keep reminding me about certain things, and I keep saying I can't remember that, and they said, "Yeah, you was there as well when we went to that school."
Selected memory.
So I think it was more of a selected memory. Yeah. But it was what I liked about that school. It was so multicultural, meaning that you had different cultures in the school. You had students from the Asian community, the Oriental Asian community, Irish, black.
So a very eclectic.
Very collective. And in black, you had the West Indians, you had the Africans. Yeah. You had the jokes that were flying around, like which in every generation you get. Yeah. With every culture, but everybody respected each other, and everybody got on.
There was a line as well.
And you know, that world was totally different to my world in Bermondsey.
I get what you mean now when you're saying it's a difference of worlds a little bit.
It was different worlds. I played my first.
It was a good decision from Mum too.
It was a very good decision from Mum. It was. It really was. I think my first structured football team was a team. When I look back on it, you know.
What age are we talking about?
I'm talking about all through, I think, and managers and coaches, or we didn't have coaches, they're just managers, and it wasn't a very nice experience.
Let me ask you something. So, for instance, like obviously those kind of terminations were even in the mainstream in professional football at that time as well. Like you know, sort of like in a very negative way, but like bananas being thrown on the pitch. You know, great players. You know, let's say John Barnes at the time, like Laurie Cunningham and all that. Great entertainers, but just weren't really kind of appreciated for their talent. It was more the colour of their skin being the kind of, was that just a time?
The funny thing is, it's like everybody, you can't ignore talent. Yeah. You really can't. So even the ones that are shouting out the abuse, they know your talent. Yeah. The ones that are shouting out the abuse that are on the opponent's side are just doing it because of your talent, because to put you off your game.
Yeah, yeah. Did you have to look at it in that way?
Well, that's the reality of it. I've had quite a few deep conversations with managers along the way about this. Obviously, you've got to understand human behaviour is ignorance. Everybody's ignorant. It's not just a certain colour or creed. Yeah. Everybody is ignorant. There's always somebody who's got something to say about somebody. You know, it happens in the black community, amongst the black community, it happens in the white community, amongst the white community, you know. You've got the Scottish who's got something to say about the Irish, who's got something to say about the English. Everybody's got something to say about somebody, and I think it's ignorance, and I don't know if it's partly because of my upbringing. I just don't do stereotyping too well. I don't like stereotyping. I don't want people to say, yeah, but that's how people are because they're from this and that's that. They have no idea what these people are really like because they're not from there. Yeah. You know, you just hear things and then you jump on the bandwagon and say that's what these people are like, and it happens in all generations, in all colours and creeds. So let me be clear about that. It's not a black and white thing. It's just a human nature thing. But I think just finishing off on your question, I think, you know, a lot of people are just generally ignorant, but there's added bonuses to abusing a very talented black player to try and put you off your game if you're the opposition because you're or a fan of the opposition because you don't want that player to do any damage on the pitch that's going to make your team lose.
So anything to distract the opponent.
Exactly.
Anything that works. Sort of.
It doesn't make it right and acceptable because it's not. And maybe later on in later episodes I will talk about some of the discussions I've had with older players, people than me that were coaches and things on long journeys that we used to have these type of conversations because things become acceptable, but they're not acceptable. You know, and things do change over time, but you ain't going to change somebody's real behaviour. But going back to arts is, yeah, it's a big shame. You know, I used to hear, you know, black players on the other teams being abused, and black this and the N-word and more. And when I was first round about 9 and 10, I didn't really used to say anything, even though my face will show it all. But I'm a young, vulnerable only black player at the time, and it's a case of how do you deal with this? You know, it's actually quite strange. Then I think when I went to secondary school, then you're in a more sort of different environment with multicultural. Then I played for a team called Moonshot on a Saturday, even though I was playing on Sunday, and Moonshot was all blacks on the team. So, as I said, it's almost like you live in different lives.
Yeah.
You know, schools like this. My New Cross, my Saturday club was more cultured, with more black players, and I'm playing as the only black player in this team that are racist. And you know, I would say I did learn a lot from being in and back then it wasn't really known that black people liked headering the ball. You know, we were good with our feet, but we didn't like headering the ball. But I was very good at headering the ball, and that I would put that down to being in a white team in Bermondsey. That made me like headering the ball. So you know, and we had a good side, and you know, I was a key player in that team, and a lot of my football growth was in that team. But it doesn't still make it acceptable when you have to endure all the other stuff, which I'm sure you'll hear later. I had a break from football for a while. Just got fed up with football for a while.
What age was that coming into your brain?
15, 16.
So what age did you start at, and what age did you?
Started at 9.
9, okay.
You know, obviously you start seeing the wider world.
So you stayed a while going through the ranks?
I stayed a long time. I have lots of resilience, something embedded in my services at Big to develop, you know, and but again, I think, remember, I'm from Bermondsey. I went to Rotherhithe School, which, you know, there was more blacks in Rotherhithe School, primary school, but still not a lot, because we're in Bermondsey. Then the big switch and jump to St Thomas Apostle, you know. But again, around that time as well, when I started getting a bit older, you know, I'm right in the middle, Surrey Quays, then you got Deptford, 10 minutes down the road, and you got New Cross, 15, 20 minutes slightly at an angle. You know, we used to go to New Cross when we were teenagers, going to Skateland and another park called Folkestone Gardens, and it just used to be sound systems, you know, and we got right in touch with our roots, because it was just reggae music and things that we kind of started to embrace as we started getting into teenage years.
Your consciousness starts.
So our consciousness started widening, because as I said, I moved on that estate when I was 6 months. There was other black families. We've all been on that estate for ages, but we then started to explore our own sort of culture and started. It wasn't that far away. It's when you go 10 minutes over the other way. You more start going into Jamaica Road and Suffolk Park Road, and back in those days, those were the worst racist areas that we had to really fight for our, you know, fight for things. People coming and wanting to start troubling us, we had to fight back and abusing us, and we had to fight back, and that was on the other side. So
you couldn't encapsulate it as like that was just the time that it was, and you had to be resilient to kind of find your way out of it, and you know, obviously times change and get better.
Yeah, well, it's two things that I want to say, but then you learn and you see more from 11 upwards, which I think is a good age to start learning about your own culture and being around more black people and your roots, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But I still say it's the whole blend of my experience that I think has made me into the person I am today in terms of how I think in a diverse way, and how connected I feel with most people.
And that is the end of podcast number 1. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. I hope you did. Obviously learning about Lionel's origin stories and this series, Who is Lionel Best? I've enjoyed filming it with Lionel, and we are going to release the next few videos in consecutive weeks, so please hold tight for them. And please, if you would, like and subscribe to both channels, myself, Aaron Lewis Central, and obviously Besty's Inspirational Guidance on YouTube and all platforms, which will be available in the description below. Thank you very much.